From Hong Kong, this is Mea Culpa, the Lessons Learned from Startup podcast, based on the Postmortem Conference, where founders, investors, lawyers, and mentors share their stories about working on, with, or for startups. I'm Jeffrey Brewer, and today we talk to Bhavneet Chahal, CEO and co-founder at GoSkills, an online learning company with personalized courses built by a completely remote team, with staff spread around the globe. She is also a former account manager of Groupon. Welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
We already discussed beforehand, but I'm allowed to call you Bav.
Yes, please.
Can you tell me a little bit about how you ended up in a startup?
Sure. I guess my startup journey started a number of years ago while I was at university. So I was doing a degree in applied science in molecular biotech, and I was in my fourth year, so the research year, and I discovered that although I love science, I definitely did not want to work in a lab or sort of be a scientist for the rest of my life. And during that time on campus, there were these sort of student business competitions. And I entered one of these competitions and I won the first round of that competition and was a finalist in the second round. And I just discovered this world of entrepreneurship and business, and I really enjoyed it and wanted to learn more and do more. So I then with that business idea, I thought I wanted to take it further, but didn't really know what to do. And there happened to be a course on entrepreneurship at the university, which I then took. It was a master's in entrepreneurship, and really enjoyed that course, learned a ton, and sort of felt like I want to do this for the rest of my life and just do startups or start businesses, grow them, and one day exit.
You did a course or like a, how do you call it, a master in entrepreneurship. It's quite a pet peeve of me that I'm always saying you cannot teach entrepreneurship. So you cannot learn it either. What's your opinion about that?
I think that so to be an entrepreneur, I think you need to have a certain risk profile, and that's probably innate, whether you're risk taking or risk averse. However, I think the actual skills of starting a business, growing a team, scaling a business, those are all, I believe, taught skills, and you can learn. You just have to have the right sort of, I think, profile to take that leap, to make that move, to start something and do it. And if you have that inside you, then I think everything else can be learned.
Yeah, because also one of the things that I do besides recording these podcasts is that I run a program at the HKU Biomedical Science Department, where we help students to learn something about how it is to start a business. And at that point, we help the students to pick an idea or pick a technology, validate that, and then at that point, I always say, teach them the tips and the tricks and the tools to navigate entrepreneurship. Because what you say indeed is that it's a risk profile as an entrepreneur, and not everybody has that. And at that point, when I quite often see, for instance, like, hey, this is a course in entrepreneurship, I always get very weary about that. So what was at that point for you one of the things that you took away from that master the most?
Yeah. So the masters, it was actually I think it was the first or the second year that they had launched this program. So it was very new. And the thing I liked about it the most was that it was a very practical course. it's not like a master's you might think is quite academic, and you might study sort of entrepreneurship from an academic point of view and its history and things like that, but it wasn't the case at all. It was extremely practical. So we had real life accountants and business people coming in and sharing their experiences with us, and we learned very practical skills, like literally how to open a business in New Zealand, like the forms you would need to fill, like the processes. So I think the thing I learned the most was that, well, it was very practical and easy to just get started. And there are people out there doing it. We met these people, and sort of it gave me a lot of confidence that if you have an idea, you should just go out and try it and do it. Just start one baby step at a time, and go for it.
And what you said earlier at your university, in a program that would help you set up a business, but you were working on an idea at that point. What was it, the idea that you were working on?
So I guess
and why didn't it work?
I had a couple of failed businesses actually. So the idea that I started with that student business competition, it was an online portal for students to sort of connect with each other, find and sell their textbooks, find flatmates. It was before the time of Facebook, so very early days. But yeah, kind of like a student portal idea. And we gathered a team for that, and but we fell apart in the execution of building the product. So we didn't actually were successful in building a platform for it. It was an idea, and the idea won a few competitions, and we got the team to work on the idea, but we didn't really execute well on building the product, and it all sort of fell away when I then started this entrepreneurship course.
During that entrepreneurship course, were you at that point running a business, or was it fully 100% education focused?
I wasn't running a business, although you could have if you wanted to. It was a course that was, I think it was Fridays and Saturdays every week or every 2 weeks. So it was very flexible, and it was geared towards people that were working, that wanted to have this extra skill set. But I wasn't working, and I didn't have a business at the time, but I had another idea which I was tinkering with at the back of my mind.
If you would now go through all the ideas that you tried previously, and with the experience that you have right now, if you would go back to the years that you had that idea, what would you tell yourself in like 10 years ago? Give yourself as an advice to that person that you was back then with the knowledge that you have right now.
Oh, so much. Well, maybe I should tell you a little bit about the second idea that was a bit more of a spectacular failure. So while I was in that entrepreneurship course, I had another idea for an app, like a tourist app, where you would open the app on your phone. It'll show you a map of where you are and all the tourist attractions around you that were sort of hidden and that were sort of known to locals, but might not be like a main attraction from the city. So that was the idea, and it was also sort of at the very beginning days of Google Maps. So it was exciting, and I had toyed with that idea for a few months and put together a business plan, and started to talk to people about it to start building something out. And one of my classmates from the course, who is also a really good friend of mine, was interested in the idea too. And I invited him to join me. And I very naively said, come join me on this idea. I'll give you 50%, without really thinking about sort of what he brought to the table or his skill set, or even, having a shareholders agreement or anything like that in place.
Yay, the co-founder agreements.
Yes. And he did, and we worked on the idea for a good couple of years. So after the course finished, we this is all we did. And we actually found a company to help us build the app. And but we never were successful in raising money. And we were under a lot of pressure because we were students. We had this idea, we had no money, no investors, and all of that sort of amounted to a lot of pressure on us. And we started to argue a lot. And we couldn't come to agreements, and we were at loggerheads on a lot of topics. But we still persevered and tried to get the idea out and to build something. But the personal relationship between myself and this person was just breaking down over time. And it got to a point where we were very close to signing a very large customer in New Zealand, like a national tourist sort of channel. And we were also very close to getting our first investor. But the relationship with myself and my co-founder had totally broken down. And he had the better relationship with the customer and with the investor. And we had a group of people around us that were advising us and mediating our problems. But in the end, he went ahead and convinced the investor and the customer to start another company, basically stole all the IP, all the ideas, all the designs of our company, create a totally new company. The investor invested in the new company and totally left me out. And that was, just absolutely shocking that would happen, and that a friend would do that. And you read about these things and you hear these stories, and you don't really understand what it's like to go through that until you go through that yourself. And so that was quite a shocking event in my startup journey. And so that's a proper failure.
That's significant indeed in the impact probably that gave you. What was your personal feeling about it? Because you were working on that, like 2 years maybe, and all of a sudden it drops away, it falls away.
Yeah, it totally disappeared. So it was 2 years of my time. It was actually my idea, my baby, and it was sort of stolen from me. And also I had invested a little bit of money myself into it. And yeah, it was just a really difficult time because I couldn't do anything about it. Like I couldn't legally do anything about it because I didn't have the resources. And I was lucky to have people around me to sort of get me through that period. And I just had to sort of put my head down and look for other opportunities and let it go. Just like say, okay, well, this happened. I'm going to learn some lessons from this and make sure it doesn't happen in my next startup.
I can imagine indeed for you personally, there was a blowback. I can still remember when I was, I must say, almost forced to sell one of my first businesses. That's another long story, but I was physically sick for 2 or 3 days, and then afterwards I didn't come out of the house for another week or something like that. So for me personally, that was really like saying goodbye to your baby. How do you cope with that? Like, what were your reactions or your maybe natural ways of shielding yourself to cope with this?
So I was definitely very angry. And I kind of had my initial sort of reaction was, well, okay, if you think you're so great, you go for it. It's like good riddance. I'd like to see you succeed without me. um, and yeah, like I definitely thought it was, it wouldn't go anywhere without me anyway, because I thought I was the brains of the operation, and like I was the visionary behind the idea. So I wasn't, um, I still had, I tried to sort of protect myself by, by these coping mechanisms. Um, and then also I had people around me that were saying things like, well, at the end of the day, like I'm still young. Well, I was still very young at that point. I was in my early 20s. And this is just one company out of many that I'll come across in my lifetime. The most important thing is to learn and to look forward, like not to look back. And all you can do really is to learn from past failures, past mistakes, and make sure you don't repeat them in the future. And this was I was in a small student town in New Zealand, and at when you're in it at that moment, you think that that's your entire world, and your entire world is sort of like crumbling around you. But you sort of take a step back and you put a bit of perspective into things, and it's just one incident in something that's probably not even that significant in my entire life.
That's a
Um,
great way to handle a situation like that. I always, when I talk about these kind of things with other people, I always say the first one is the one with the most impact. By the time you're around 7, you will know there is another day, and that's probably tomorrow. So I wouldn't say you get used to it, but it definitely you will get to a different perspective every time it happens. Whatever reason it is that you have to either say goodbye or selling a company or have to fold it or something else like that. That's a great way for you to cope with that. Did you talk to professional advisors to get to that, or did you had good friends that helped you with that? How did you go out and seek for help in that particular situation?
Yeah, I had good mentors around me. There were good people, basically people that I had met through the university, and so this happened in Dunedin in New Zealand. It's a small student town, and there's a good business community there that's very supportive of young people, young entrepreneurs. And it was really that business community and the university sort of community that I was close with, that provided the mentorship and the support during this time. But I think also incidents like this help you build resilience and grit, and I think that's so important. And I'm really happy that actually this happened quite early on, and I feel like once you go through sort of quite a traumatic experience, you do build resilience, and I came out of it really quite optimistic about the future, and knowing that if I've been through this once, I can go through anything really. You just have to keep going, like looking forward and progressing.
Okay. Now in hindsight, is he still working on that company, or what? Did he succeed or not?
No, of course not. It
Revenge.
crashed and burned naturally. I feel quite good about it. I mean, I probably shouldn't, but I do, because he ended up investing quite a bit of money of his personal funds into it. And the investor also invested a significant amount of money into it. And I think they ran it for a couple of years after, but it all crashed and burned, and everyone lost their money. And I was just sort of happy that well, I mean, the investor backed the wrong horse is how I look back on it. And yeah, it was just an interesting lesson.
And then you brushed it off. And what was next for you?
That's a good question. So I needed to get a job because I had been unemployed, and I had no work experience. I had done this straight out of university. So there was a biotech company in Dunedin in the same town, and I knew sort of the senior management in that company, and they were just about to commercialize their first product. And so I got a job with them, and I worked there for a couple of years, and it was good because I got to use my scientific background to understand the science, but not be in a lab and to actually work on the commercialization of their products. And I really enjoyed that. I worked directly with the CEO, and I learned so much from him. Got to travel to lots of places, launching this product around the world, and learning from a senior, well experienced CEO manager, and it was great. I never thought I didn't think that I would just keep doing startups again. That wasn't in my mindset. My mindset was just to get a job and see what's next.
And having worked in a biotech company, and now you have the experience of building a tech company in the IT space, for you, what's the biggest difference between building up something in biotech and building up something that is just purely coding and development? What are the biggest challenges in difference there?
Oh my God. Biotech is very difficult. There's so much unpredictable science, whereas software products, it's predictable. You can, iron out bugs in a software product. It's quite binary. Whereas biotech, with natural sciences anyway, results can be so variable and unpredictable, and you just need so much more research and development. So this company, actually, it was a spin-off from the university, and it was a research project that had been running for about, I think, 10 years before I joined. So it was based on a lot of years of just pure research before they could get a product out there to be commercialized. Very, very different.
And then you did that for a couple of years, you said?
Yep. I think 3 years.
And then you wanted to start something else. It like started tickling again, or what was next for you?
Yeah. So by that stage, I had lived in Dunedin for about 9 years. And Dunedin is a small town at the bottom of New Zealand, the bottom of the South Island of New Zealand. Usually students go there and they live there for 2 to 3 years, complete their degrees, and move back to their cities or move overseas. It was highly unusual for someone to stay that long. So for me, for example, to go to university there and then actually like start to settle down there, to get a job and to live there. And I guess I got itchy feet, and I wanted to not live in a small city, and I wanted to live in a big city and try something different, and experience a different type of lifestyle. So as a New Zealander, we can live and work in Australia without a visa. So I started looking for jobs in Australia, in Sydney and in Melbourne in particular. And I applied for this VP of sales job at Groupon in Sydney, and had an interview, a phone interview, and they quickly discovered that I really had no VP of sales experience, but they liked
Aim high.
but they liked my personality, I guess, and they wanted to hire me anyway. So I didn't get that job, but they hired me on this management trainee program where I could go over and try a whole different bunch of jobs while I'm at Groupon and settle down into one. So that happened. So I got the job at Groupon, packed up my bags and moved to Sydney.
Were you at that point already like maybe planning to at one point start your own company again and like start saving up so you could get some runway, or was it totally not in your mind yet?
It was totally not in my mind. I think I was still pretty scarred from the previous experience, and it just didn't even occur to me that I would do that again. I just wanted to get a job. I love startups and technology companies, and I was super excited to be working for Groupon, this, one of the world's most famous startups at the time. And I wanted to be in that world, but I did not think I would be starting up a business again.
So how did you end up in your startup? If you were not planning to do that, how did you get there?
Yeah, so it was actually because of Groupon. So I got to Sydney, I started my job at Groupon, and I quickly discovered that the job was not what I hoped it would be. It was a well-oiled sales machine. By the time I joined, I didn't really have a lot of autonomy. I couldn't really make any changes. I was just a small cog in this machine. But I did notice a few things. So I saw that. So I was put into a a team that focuses on selling products. So Groupon has different verticals. You can sell services, which are based on your geography, like, hairdressers in a particular geography or restaurants. Or there's a product category, which is defined as anything that can be delivered nationwide. And the product category was by far the fastest growing and most revenue generating team at Groupon. And so I was in that team by coincidence. And in the product category, the top selling products were online courses. And out of the online courses, the top selling online course was Excel courses. Whenever we put on an Excel deal, it just sold like hotcakes. And I could see how much these deals, how high in demand, how much high in demand these deals were, and how much they were making. So I looked into Groupon's suppliers for these online courses, and I checked them out myself. And I was really shocked and appalled by what was considered an online course. I thought the quality was really bad. There were sort of very long videos, which I thought were not done well, PDF downloads, websites that looked dated, just low quality products. But I could see that there was such high demand for it, and they were making a lot of money. So the seedling of an idea was planted in my head for creating an online course. But I didn't do anything about it. I worked at Groupon for about 5 months, 5 or 6 months, and I was then sort of headhunted to work for an app development company. And I worked there for a couple of years. And I really enjoyed working with my boss in that company, and I learned a lot about the software development process and just how tech companies work. But my boss left, and I was suddenly exposed to the CEO. I suddenly was directly reporting to the CEO of that company, and me and him did not get on well. We didn't really we didn't really respect each other's opinions. And I was actually in the process of being fired by that company. I then started to think, oh my God, I need to look for another job. Or, oh, well, actually, there's this, what about creating an Excel course and selling it on Groupon just as a way to tide me over while I look for something else. And that was really how we started GoSkills.
So that means that you're in a job and you weren't really planning. So I guess you didn't save up for 18 months of runway in salary to pay for your rent, etc. So how did you prepare yourself? What was your first product? If you look at your first product right now, quite often you hear if you're still embarrassed for it, you should launch it. If you're not embarrassed for it, you launch too late. How can you describe the first steps that you did on building GoSkills?
Yeah, so I started a lot of it while I was working full time. So I saw the opportunity and I spoke to my former colleagues in New Zealand about the opportunity. I showed them the Excel online courses that were being sold on Groupon. I showed Franz, who's now my co founder, how much they were making. And we thought, let's give it a go. And so a lot of the work was done while I was working full time. So just in my evenings and weekends, I would be sketching out wireframes, looking for instructors, and building the product while working full time. Um, and and in terms of sort of being financially safe, I did save up during my working days. And so I felt comfortable to leave a job and not have an income for at least 6 months. And that was what I had set in my mind as a target. So if we launch this business and it doesn't start being able to pay a salary or pay something towards me and my co-founder after 6 months, then I just need to get another job. So that's what we did. So I actually worked at that app development company until we made our first sale with GoSkills. And it was only once we sold, I just wanted to sell one Excel course just to know that, okay, someone will buy it. And then from there on, it's just up to us to scale that. So when we got that first sale, I quit the job / almost got fired and went full hog into GoSkills and growing it. And so how we launched by selling the courses on Groupon.
Does that mean that as of almost day one, you had revenue coming in? Does it all mean that you were cash flow positive as of day one, or like how did the finance for GoSkills in the beginning?
Yeah. So the entire business plan was to create an Excel course, just one course, and sell it back through Groupon. The way Groupon works is that they don't ask for any upfront marketing fees. They take a cut on your sales. It's quite a large cut. It's about 50%. But it gave us exposure to millions of people, and it gave us cash into the business from day one. And I was lucky enough to still have good relationships with people inside Groupon. And I went back to them and said, I've got this Excel course. Happens to be one of your top selling products, I know. But it's better than what you're selling for XYZ reasons. Would you like to try it? And they did, and it did well in the tests. And I sort of had to make sure that it did well in the test too. And I was lucky that my job at Groupon was to maximize revenues for deals. And so I knew how to make it very appealing. And so it worked. So the Excel course did well on the test. It was rolled out nationally. And then I approached Groupons around the world using their sort of internal language to sell it to them. Like, oh, it's a killer deal in Australia. You have to launch it in Malaysia. It'll, just using their sort of like tactics to sell it to other Groupons. And then we got into Groupon in the States eventually, and that was when things really took off for us. The scale of the sales in the States was just enormous. And we were able to invest all the money that we got from the Groupon sales into creating more courses, and we just bootstrapped the company that way.
Did you end up at one point taking outside investments, or?
No, we're still bootstrapped.
Okay.
So we're 7 years in now.
Always the best way to build a business, in my point of view, if you can do it in that sense. But that's great to hear. What was, especially when you had to start growing and scale up, what was the biggest challenge at that point? Because I can imagine that if you switch on the United States as one of your potential markets, that things like scalability, performance of the course, how did you did the structure of that course that it was able to serve so many clients?
Yeah, so it's an online on-demand pre-recorded course. So it's similar to a software product in that you create it once and you can sell it infinitely. So scaling the product wasn't so difficult. Franz, my co-founder, is the technical genius behind GoSkills, and so he made sure that the technology was scalable. Um, and yeah, and in terms of creating the product, so we found an Excel instructor, an MVP in Canada, got him to create the course content for us. And we were quite prescriptive with what we wanted. So we wanted micro-learning components. So all our videos are 3 to 5 minutes long. All videos come with a quiz, an exercise, and a cheat sheet. And we wanted to make it as interactive as possible. And we then applied that formula for all our courses. So yeah, so scaling it wasn't too big of an issue. The bigger challenges were around sales and Groupons, actually, because we sort of caught the end of the wave of daily deals, and we saw that every time we relaunched a deal or every new course we launched, we were just getting less and less sales every time, and it wasn't a long-term or a sustainable channel for us.
How did you pivot to your current channel from Groupon? Like, what were there the dynamics that you saw, and what was the challenge there to make that happen?
Yeah. So it was a really scary time because basically 100% of our revenue was from Groupons. And we had our website was basically like a supplier website. It was all about entering your Groupon code and redeeming your code to get access to the courses. We did have PayPal as an option to buy the courses, and that was it. What we saw was that because we were very popular on Groupons, and we had lots of Groupon sites linking to our course pages, we were beginning to rank on Google search results. And some people were finding us without Groupons and finding GoSkills and actually buying courses through our own website. And we started to collect analytics on these people. We called them direct customers. And we saw that these people were obviously spending a lot more with us than Groupon customers, because there was no cut to Groupon. And also they were purchasing other courses at a higher rate than Groupon customers. They were more loyal. And so that was the turning point where we thought, okay, well, we need to sort of pivot our customer acquisition channel and focus more on these direct customers. So we learned everything about SEO, search engine optimization, about the e-commerce funnel, about e-commerce in general, how to sell online, and built that up over the next years. And now we don't sell on daily deals anymore, and most of our revenue comes from search engine optimizations.
Okay. And referring to your previous experience with a co-founder, now you have a co-founder agreement with your current co-founder?
We do. We actually just created one a few years ago. The main lessons I took away from my previous startup was finding a co-founder that had complementary skills to me. I think a big issue with the previous guy was that we were actually quite similar in our skill set. We were both sort of sales, marketing, BD people, and we were overlapping in our domains of expertise. And I wanted to find someone that had a different domain of expertise, and we would have our own sort of territories, and we would respect each other in our territories, and we would complement each other in building a business. And I found that in Franz.
That's great to hear, of course, because you got your learnings there. Are there still things today that you say to yourself, maybe I want to change that still, or maybe I should have done differently there?
With GoSkills?
Yes.
I think one of the main challenges has been hiring people. We were still, it's quite difficult. So we grew because so Franz was always in New Zealand and I was in Sydney. So we were remote from day one, and we never felt the pressure to build an office and to find people in either of our locations. So we always grew the team by hiring remotely. And we've had so many challenges with people that have been fantastic, that have been with us almost from the beginning, to people that have just been absolutely toxic and disastrous. And that's something that that is difficult and will be, I think, will be difficult as we scale the business.
Quite often, as a co-founder, building your business, you get advice from people. What is an advice that you often hear but you actually don't agree with?
One thing that annoys me a lot is when people say, oh, you have your own startup, you have to work, 12-hour days and all X-hour weeks, and you just have to put in all your time and effort and energy into your startup. And I really disagree with this. I think it's actually really important to have work-life balance, even if it's your startup, because I see a lot of people put everything into their businesses and then they just burn out so quickly. And I value my personal time, and I value my home time, and I think it's probably quite a Kiwi value to appreciate life and to not forget the bigger picture. And I think both me and my co-founder feel that way. And so we've never had that crazy culture of, putting in tons and tons of hours and forcing, our team to work crazy hours. I've just never understood that. And we have a very relaxed culture at our company because of that.
And what's not a secret but most people don't know about you?
I don't know. What's a secret that people don't know about me?
What's not a secret and most people don't know about you?
It's not a secret that people don't know about me. I'm a terrible cook. I don't know.
Let's leave it at that then. If there's one thing you want people to take away from this talk, what would it be?
I think just if you have an idea and you're thinking about starting a business, just do it. Just talk to as many people about it. Don't be afraid of people stealing your idea. I think that's a bit of a myth. Just try it. You don't really know what it's like until you give it a go. And it may be for you or it may not be for you. But in either case, you'll learn a lot. And I think you'll come out knowing more about yourself and knowing more about business. And it'll only help you at your next job or your next venture. Don't be afraid to just try things.
Great. Thank you very much for that. I want to thank you for your valuable insights and sharing of your lessons learned in startups.
Thank you.
For the listeners, although the rating system of podcast is hideous, if you like Mea Culpa series, you can rate this podcast with 5 stars as a motivation for the makers. Also, we want to thank Mizuho Crowdbrain for letting us use their venue for recording this podcast. This is Jeffrey Brewer, and normally I would say go out and build something meaningful, but with this COVID situation, I'll just say go and build something meaningful.